right, welcome everyone to probably one of the last of maybe two live streams for the year as we are rapidly approaching the end of 2024. Let's see. So, a couple of announcements here before we get started. First of all, today's guest will be Andy Wick, creator of the Arkime project, formerly known as Moloch. Great packet capture and network analysis tool. So, if you haven't checked it out, really excited for you to do that. You can go to the website, arkime.com. There's an interactive demo that you can get hands on right away if you want. But we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the project and then get into a little bit of a demo as well. Beyond that, let me just pull up a screen share here. Just want to thank everyone who is a channel member. Your support means a lot, and I have a lot planned as we move into 2025. For example, I am working on a how to create shellcode playlist, the basics of creating shellcode, and should have that live, at least a good chunk of that live by over the weekend and into next week. So thank you for all of you that are willing to support the channel, and for everyone that's just following, subscribing, commenting, and anybody that's sharing just the news and the content that I'm creating. So it means a lot. Beyond that, I've also have released episode 3 of the podcast. This is called Behind the Binary and launched this podcast in October. So we're now 3 episodes into the podcast. Episode 1 was with Nick Harbour talking a little bit about Mandiant, early days of incident response. Episode 2 was with Victor Alvarez, the creator of Yara. So talking about the creation of Yara and then the future with Yara X. And now episode 3 is with Ryan Chapman, and he talks a bit about his entry into reverse engineering through software cracking and the evolution and growth of his career to where he's at today as a threat hunter. So hopefully you could check that out, and please do, if you enjoyed the podcast, leave a rating, leave a review. That helps the podcast to grow and reach a larger audience. Okay. With that being said, I have switched to a new streaming platform. I'm back to Restream. I was previously on StreamYard. So if there's anything that feels a little off, please do let me know as I'm just navigating the transition here. But without further ado, I want to bring on our guest today. Andy Wick is joining us from locations undisclosed to talk about, I never asked, I usually don't, about the creation of, and well, a little bit about your background maybe, and then we'll be primarily focusing on Arkime. We are unfortunately where I'm at into the negative temperatures here, and that's Fahrenheit. So that puts me in a certain part of the world. So well, welcome, Andy. Thank you for taking time to join. I think it's been a few years since the last time we were able to do a webinar together when I was with OISF. So really appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Josh. I'm in Northern Virginia, so we're probably not as cold as you are, but yeah, so...
You get snow though, don't you?
A tiny bit, not a lot. We get enough, just a taste, which is all I need.
Well, I wouldn't disagree. It's not the snow so much here. It's the bitter cold that gets me. I have a friend that lives in northern Canada though, and so whenever I complain about the weather, I think about him and realize that it could be worse. So,
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining. I wanted to start a little bit about, I guess, maybe what Arkime is for anyone who's not familiar. I worked with the Suricata project for years, and I was always a little surprised at how far some people get in their career without doing a lot of network monitoring, whether that's intentional or not. Can you maybe start by just telling us a little bit about Arkime and the history of the project?
Sure. So, Arkime at its core is a full packet capture system. So it's something to monitor your network, save off metadata about the traffic that's going by, and actually save the packets if you want. Arkime is really powerful where you can choose what you want to save, so you don't have to save all the packet data. A lot of times people find that can get kind of expensive, and we can talk about that more later. But basically how the project started is, a little background about myself is I was at AOL for 26 plus years. The first half of my career, I worked on AOL Instant Messenger, or AIM, and I was involved with lots of different parts of that, from clients to the back end to everything. And after it was clear that the end was near, I switched off to security. And one of the first projects Owen Miller suggested I work on was, hey, we have this commercial software that's really expensive. Can you develop a version that's just as good and cheaper to run? And so that's where Arkime, back then it was called Moloch, came from.
Yeah.
We were using a commercial project where basically for the cost of monitoring just one of our networks, we could monitor everything with Arkime. And so it was really born out of the desire to be cost effective and efficient. And so it took about 6 months to have kind of a prototype, good enough version. And luckily we were supported by our CISO, who was like, why don't you open source this? And from there we've just grown.
Yeah, definitely. When was the project initially made public?
Public was 2012. I want to
Oh,
say,
wow. Okay.
I'll get the date wrong, but
Yeah,
approximately October-ish.
okay.
And we started it in 2011, like mid 2011. And so, yeah, we were really lucky that we had support from everybody to open source it, because a lot of places would be, oh, you've developed this cool thing, we'll just keep it in-house. But no, from the very beginning, it's like, let's open source this, get contributions, get people using it, suggestion features. I mean, it's really been a great experience working with an open source project. And as you know, with Suricata, just getting the community involved and having everybody, want your project to succeed.
Yeah, the community makes such a big difference. The support they provide, and just the level of involvement. I imagine seeing the product being used. What were maybe some of the early challenges that you had in development? Did you like run across times where you thought, oh, maybe this isn't going to last, or I mean, a thing I hear a lot of times as a reverse engineer malware analyst is that, the network, nobody monitors, nobody needs to monitor the network. Everything's encrypted, and so there's really no need. But that seems awfully short-sighted to me. So have you run into any problems like that? And maybe like, how are you responding to that particular question with everything's encrypted?
Sure, I'll get to that in just a second. But
Okay.
to begin with, I mean, the two first problems were like, what kind of database should we use to store this data? So initially we started with Mongo, and Mongo just was not up to this particular task of storing mass amounts of data. So with companies I've worked with or worked for, folks are storing petabytes worth of packets, petabytes worth of metadata, and Mongo was just not up to it. So luckily, someone suggested, hey, go look at Elasticsearch. And this is when Elasticsearch was version maybe 0.16 or something. It was kind of the very beginning of Elasticsearch, or beginning of their open source journey also. So it was great. It could do so much. It made so many things easy. And so we were really lucky that was available for us to use. And they were open to fixes and just new features too back then. They were great to work with. And then the other big thing was just doing the TCP reassembly. So I love protocol dissection. I've been doing lots of reverse engineering for protocols for years, but I had never really spent time doing TCP reassembly. And so we started with libnids. Libnids used to be a huge open source project that everybody used when they wanted to do reassembly back in the day. I don't think it's been updated probably in 10 years, but it used to be what folks used. And that's what we started with too. And so that made things easy for us. But it was clear that libnids was not up to the task after a while, once we were monitoring probably 30, 40,000 streams at once. And so eventually we had to create our own TCP reassembly software. And so that was another big challenge. Now, as far as your question you ask about, hey, everything's encrypted these days, why even bother with full packet capture? Well, a couple things. One, not everything is actually encrypted, especially a lot of the beaconing software. I am not a security engineer in any aspect. So please forgive me if I use the wrong terms. I like to pretend I'm one, and I've sat with many people, but I'm really a developer. So,
Yeah.
But from my experience and from running Arkime, there is still tons of traffic that is not actually encrypted. And so that's answer one. Answer two is there's a lot of fingerprint work going on. So we'll talk a little bit about JAW4 later, but you have JAW3, JAW4, you have all these other fingerprinting algorithms out there where you can actually look at the traffic, get a fingerprint on it, and kind of figure out what is doing that traffic, like what tool potentially. And then there's still certs. Certificates still have a lot of information in them that you can use. And even with the new encrypted hello or with Quick, they're working on trying to obfuscate or hide some of that information, but there's still ways to see what's going on. And finally, you still have the 5-tuple. I mean, you still don't know, who's talking to who unless they're proxying it. So
yeah, right. Yeah, I've been thinking about this. Just tools like Arkime and Suricata and others, and that. I mean, they're to me they're essentially like IdaPro is for files that for the network. I mean, you've had to put a lot of reverse engineering work into. I mean, just like me, when I reverse a PE file, I can rely on some of the documentation that's available, but then I also have to rely a lot on just simply what code is there and how the CPU is parsing or interpreting it. So it is a massive, in my mind, a massive reverse engineering project.
Right.
Have you found any? Well, I guess my questions. I'm sorry, it's maybe late in the year, and maybe my mind is a little wandery more so than usual. But have you found any protocols to be more difficult than others in order to create parsers for?
Oh, definitely. Like the quick obfuscation of the DNS, of the host name, is just silly. I mean, it's not actually encrypted. It's like this very complicated way they've obfuscated that maybe they're counting on CPUs and routers or firewalls would not want to spend all that time to decode it, but you can actually decode it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that was a real pleasure to try and figure out. Luckily, Wireshark and HTTP NG and some other libraries, we're working on it at the same time. And so you could see kind of what their notes were comparing to what my notes were. And yeah, that was one of the biggest struggles. And I have like comments in the code is like, who designed this? They must have had a lot of time on their hands. But that reminds me of another point. A lot of people like to say, well, what about DNS with HTTPS, DOH, and a lot of places where Suricata and Arkime are installed as enterprises, where one of the first things they do is disable that. So an enterprise deployment of Arkime is still going to see a lot of DNS. And you, if you run this at home, can disable it yourself. You don't have to. Most of the browsers have either easy ways to disable it, or you can just block it and it will fall back to non-DOH. So it's kind of your choice, but a lot of enterprises, are not actually having this issue with DNS. I know that's one of the things that people like to point out as one of the problems. And then DNS has so much information, as you know, where you can just figure out what is going on.
Yeah. So 2012, it was when the project was made public, which means years before you started the actual work. Was there any like comparable projects at the time or other tools? So there's a commercial tool. Was that like the main, the main inspiration or thing you were looking at in order to sort of base this work off of?
Right. I mean, back then there
wasn't anything else really open source, was there?
Well, you have TCP dump at the base level,
Yeah,
and then you have Google Stenographer, which I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it was around that time. But no, there weren't very many other open source projects. I mean, you had what is the NG one? I'm blanking on it, but it'll come back to me. But like I think it's PCAP NG and a couple other projects that they were in that space, but the differentiation was we had a UI. Like you went to a web page, and we decided right from the beginning to do web-based because the commercial project that we were competing with was an application. And so by having it as a web page, you could go right to it from any computer, and you could see all the traffic. And so people didn't have to install it everywhere. And then, unlike Stenographer, which doesn't have a UI, or TCP dump, or any of these other tools, back then at least, don't have UI. We had a UI right from the start. So it was easy to go select the sessions that you want to look at and do whatever you want with them. One of the other things that people get confused with Arkime, I guess I should mention right from the start, is we are not trying to replace Wireshark. Really what we are is a way to capture your traffic, organize it, have it all in sessions. We do everything based on sessions as opposed to Wireshark, which is packet-based. And then you can look at the metadata that we collect, but we make it super easy to just fling it over to Wireshark or whatever tool you want, right? We're not what's the wall garden of your packets. We're really, what I like to think about it is we're an easy way to organize your sessions so that you can then send it to the tools that actually deal with it. Wireshark has, in my mind, I don't know if this is official or not, but it has the goal of identifying what every single bit is in packets, where our goal is not that. Our goal is currently maybe, I don't even know, let's say 400 different fields that we understand. I'm guessing Wireshark has 100,000 fields or more that they understand. So we will never have that many fields, nor do we want to. I mean, most folks don't want to be able to search on what every single bit in a packet is. They want to be able to find the sessions that they're interested in quickly. And then if they really need to be able to dissect the whole thing, they'll send it to their favorite tool.
Yeah, I think that's when I first encountered it was Moloch at the time myself, in sort of an organic way. I was just really impressed at how quickly I could sift through mountains of network traffic, and I still I'm enamored with the model to this day. And in fact, I got a grant while I was in academia to build. Basically, I wanted to build a file parsing, and I did a file parsing utility that is a complete and utter ripoff of your UI and principles. But because I would run into the same issues, I look at all these PE files day in and day out, but I can't answer simple questions about the files I analyze. Like how many PE files have I seen that have this section name, this file size, and maybe this entropy in this part of it. And so it just seemed like such a natural way to turn all of that into, like a facet, a searchable piece of data, and put it in front of Elastic. And so it's just, I've really enjoyed using the tool. And it's been a couple of years now. I've moved into a role where I don't handle a lot of network traffic, which seems maybe a bit odd, but I don't see it a lot. I'm not writing any signatures or anything. What's been some of the major changes or like feature improvements or things that you've done with Arkime as it's grown here in the last 2-3 years?
Yeah, I should have come more prepared with a better list off the top of my head. Let's see. The biggest features have been really around the user experience lately. We've been improving that, making it easier to do things. We've been having to upgrade, various components that we have. I don't remember the last time you tried it, but one of the things I wanted to show is the ability to hunt through your packets, where you can actually find actual pieces of data in the packets themselves. So fields that we haven't actually parsed out. I think that's one of the coolest features. One of the new features that we've added with 5.0 is the ability to have the packets stored in more places than just on the disk. You can now fetch them from anything that understands S3 or URL format. And so you no longer have to download them and then run Arkime on them or live capture them. You can actually have your repository living in S3 or S3 compatible APIs or other things. And it's easy to add new storage locations for them. And so this is really powerful for folks who have collections of PCAP that want to then shove them into Arkime as opposed to folks monitoring their networks. And we kind of have several different use cases around that. There are lots of folks that, maybe signature writers or malware collectors or whatever, who have all these PCAPs that they want to be able to quickly go through and find the ones they're looking for. And we make it easy to ingest them. You can add custom tags or even custom fields as you ingest them, so that
Mhm.
you can actually search for them. Like if you have sample A and sample B, and you actually want to search for the string sample A, as long as you did that when you ingested it, it'll just show up, and you can find all those. And so you can use official tags or names if you want, or however you want to do that. And so we've made that a lot easier for folks, because that seems to be a common use case these days. And then we've continued to add new parsers and um, classifiers, so that you can just decode more and more traffic. Obviously HTTP3 and Quick are super popular these days. Many folks do not understand how much Quick traffic they have on their network in enterprises, and so it's always fun to show like these demos where it's like, did you know that 30% of your traffic is not being monitored and is over UDP and is going to Google, Facebook, or whatever? And they're like, oh, yeah.
So I had a opportunity in a previous life to put tools like Arkime onto production networks and work with customers. Usually very short windows, but it was always interesting to discover what they had on their network, and then more interesting to realize or to have the conversation with them as to whether or not they knew what they had on their network. It was almost always a surprise because there just were things. Segmentation, for example, there was some segmentation that just wasn't there that they thought was there, and all kinds of things that I guess like just by monitoring the network, you were able to easily surface and identify as a problem and a risk and maybe performance, and start to put some remediation in.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is when you go to a new site is to see how much of their building control system is beaconing out. A lot of people don't know that their Honeywell controllers or whatever are, just beaconing out, and they think they have them VLANed off or whatever, but many times they don't. It's like, did you know that your temperature is going out? Not that it necessarily matters, but if somehow someone gets control of one, who knows what will happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's really interesting. So the network is alive and well. You should be looking at it. I would suggest you monitor it if you're not. This is just a personal curiosity. I don't necessarily would expect you to know this level of detail offhand, but last I checked, you can integrate Suricata with Arkime, and you can get your IDS alerts then sort of brought in through that route. So you have maybe a little bit of overlap in terms of something monitoring your network, but there is no, to my knowledge, then inherent like scripting capability. Not that you necessarily need it, or alerting, right? That comes from an external source like Suricata.
Yeah, so we have very basic alerting, and we've, for the longest time, kind of resisted adding alerting because it feels like Suricata, Zeek, your favorite tool, is already focused on that. Why do we don't want to, we are not an IDS. That's always been, number one goal. Not an IDS. There's plenty of IDSs out there. And so we've slowly crept in with some basic alerting where we call them either periodic queries, or we used to call them cron queries, where you can set up these queries that run constantly, and if there's a match, it can alert you that, hey, you have a new match. And so that's kind of the basic alerting that we have now. And as far as scripting, we have Lua, so you can write Lua scripting. That's going to be one of our big pushes for Arkime 6, where right now Lua is a plugin. We're going to make, with Arkime 6, Lua is going to be first class, and we're going to actually make it some of our pieces written in Lua and automatically load Lua, so it's not kind of a second-class citizen like it is right now.
Okay. Very cool. This also kind of falls in my bucket of personal curiosity, so it's okay if you don't want to share any insight here. But when you typically get on a network, let's say you're in a new environment, whatever it happens to be, a new customer, a new employer, whatever, and you're starting to monitor. Do you have an approach or a methodology for how you start to use Arkime to understand what's happening in the network, to try to tease out security issues, misconfigurations, like you were talking about data being beaconed out? Like how do you go? Because it can really quickly produce a tremendous amount of data that can be really hard to sift through, which is the power of the tool. It makes it easy to sift through if you know how to use it.
Yeah. So currently we don't have professional services. That's something that I would love to do, either work with somebody or maybe someday I'll do myself. So I'm not really brought into networks when it's first used. Occasionally someone will ask me to help them and I'll show them some of the things that they do. And like I mentioned, I'm not a security engineer. So the first thing I do whenever I get access to a new network, as being the developer, is I go, show me all the traffic where there's only one protocol recognized. And what that basically says is the protocol being recognized is either going to be TCP, UDP, or ICMP. And if there's only one protocol recognized, that means we didn't actually know what it was. It means that it's something that we don't know how to at least classify. And so then I go, look at all this stuff that Arkime has no clue what it is. Let me go figure out what it is. And so that's where I'll find, this is Honeywell. Oh, I've never seen that before. Or this is some kind of control system. I don't know if you're familiar with the Malcolm project. That's somebody maybe you should have on here sometime with Seth. Malcolm kind of wraps Suricata, Zeek, and Arkime into one thing. It has a stronger focus on industrial control, but it can be used for anything. But that's one of the things that they've spent a lot of time on is looking at these kinds of control things, because it's very interesting to them. But yeah, and I'll find all kinds of interesting things, like what is going on. And so my own deployments that I used to run, whenever we stood up new buildings, it was always interesting to see, hey, what is this new crazy thing? Like at one place they had some kind of video transfer thing, and then I went and looked it up, and these are like these $100,000 like RAIDs that have like 40 gig links that can like instantly transfer videos between two sites across the country. And it's like, what is all this data? We definitely don't want to capture it, but it was still interesting to look at it and figure out what was going on. And so that's what I do. Like as a security person, it's going to be a different answer. They're going to probably try and figure out, and I can demo some of this later, but some of the top talkers, top protocols, top certs that are being sent around. Do I realize what that is? At AOL Yahoo, we ran a mail system. So, we had lots of crazy traffic, but if you're at a company that doesn't have a mail system, it's going to be a lot easier to get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that was, I've got some favorites. What protocols wouldn't you expect to see? Known protocols you wouldn't expect.
Right.
If you're not hosting mail, would you expect to see SMTP?
Exactly.
Because it is abused. FTP, right? Like we're not using FTP. Well, malware does. So if you wouldn't expect to, and you're not blocking that traffic going out, you might find it on your network, which could indicate that there's something going on. And it just seemed like, generally my approach would be getting rid of, either looking for things that I wouldn't expect, or trying to then narrow the bucket down from things that I do expect, and then look for anomalous stuff from there. And it is, it's one of those things. You don't know what you don't know. Like you don't know you're missing something until you know that you've caught it. And so it can take a while to like refine that process of how you sift through that much data. Especially when you don't have concrete, I'm not looking for a specific set of IPs or user agent strings or something. And that's sometimes, where you go to like a Suricata to say, okay, I'd like to apply some rules to the traffic to maybe help me identify something that stands out. So,
right.
Yeah, very cool.
And before someone asks, because this is the place where you would segue into AI and LLMs to detect, things that you weren't expecting. Currently, we have not done anything with Arkime with that kind of detection. I think it's on our thoughts to explore. I think in some ways we're kind of waiting to see what shakes out, because there's a lot of noise around LLMs right now. But it's very interesting. Like, can you use an LLM to learn what is currently on the network and detect something that's new that shouldn't be there?
Yeah. I think I would think like beaconing patterns too. Because and those are tricky, because there's a lot of things that beacon, trackers, and I had I think I don't remember what utility it was on my network, but it was demonstrating beaconing like activity, but it was just the interval for the web UI to update. It was my sandbox, or maybe it was Arkime itself. I don't remember now, but those can be really, really tricky. We did just get a question about Google's new quantum chip. I saw the stock price did really well this week, and I thought, what the heck's going on? I'm actually on vacation right now, so I'm really unplugged. I didn't know it was coming. I can't offer any insight into it, even if I had some. I couldn't. But I suppose I was going to use this as an opportunity just to point out that like the process of TLS interception decryption is still, that's not something that Arkime handles, is it? That's still left to other devices and other solutions.
Correct. So, lots of people have asked us, can you make it work where we can do interception and decrypt stuff? I think TLS 1.3 has made that harder. And so we have not spent the time to do that. I have worked with folks who have used Arkime with a proxy. And so I'm blanking on the name, but so we have one proxy that can send traffic directly to Arkime after it's decrypted it, and just you can capture it that way. And then we've also worked with vendors who do network-based interception, and they tee off the traffic, and we've come up with solutions. We have something on our webpage about how you can use it to deal with that. The one thing that we don't support is ICAP currently. I think that's what it's called, ICAP, because that's really only HTTP based, and there's a lot more encrypted stuff than just that.
Okay. Well, if anyone has questions, keep them coming. The chat's open. I'm happy to be the I guess the middle person here and capturing those and making sure that either I answer them or hopefully they're more directed all to Andy and he can answer. Should we, gosh, it's already been 32 minutes. You want to maybe transition into a bit of a demo at this point?
Sure, let's do a demo and then we can always answer questions after.
Okay. I will share your screen then. Okay. And I'm going to leave us tiled right on the bottom here. So if we get in the way, anybody let me know, and I will get us moved. Also, if the font looks pretty good to me, but if we need to do any sort of additional zooming or font size increasing, let me know as well.
Perfect, thanks. So I always have a debate about how to do a demo because people always feel like I either skip the important part or I should go into that first, but I just want to do like a brief introduction of what Arkime is. And so this is the main landing page. This is where we call the sessions view. And it's going to show you all the sessions. You can control what fields are shown. You can reorganize them, sort them, whatever you feel like doing. And it's just showing, in this case, this is the default view where it's showing you the time, the 5-tuple information, how many packets, and the size, and then where it was captured, what node it was captured on. That's important if you're doing like a large deployment where you might have sensors in multiple buildings or on different networks or whatever you want to know. In this case, this is all demo data. So this data is not going to be super interesting. I'm sorry about that, but and anybody can access this data, although I ask you to wait maybe and don't try and crash the demo. But yeah, this is all just demo data. And so what you're seeing here is just the sessions. And like I mentioned before, Arkime is putting all the packets into sessions. Instead of like Wireshark, where you see all of the various packets, we take the 5-tuple and merge the packets. And then you can open any of these sessions. And when you open up a session, and if you haven't used Arkime for a while, this is one of the things we spent a lot of time for 5.0 is making this look a lot better and prettier. And we're going to show you.
Is this the online demo? Just
yes.
Off the website. So if anyone wants to, in a little bit, go check it out, arkime.com.
I mean, you can do it now, just be gentle.
Okay.
And so this is just, what you'll see here is just the different sections of data. And so the session that I just opened up at random is a TLS session. And all sessions are going to have kind of a general section, which is going to have your 5-tuple. And one of the big things we did for 5.0 was add JA4 support. So here's the JA4 information. And then because this was a TLS session, we're going to have the certificate information. We also do JA3. The host name in the certificate was, in the SNI was localhost. And then if you scroll down some more, you'll see the actual packets. And so these are the packets that went back and forth. And one of the things that you can control with Arkime is for encrypted traffic, how many of the packets to store. So we usually recommend that you only store 20 packets or so for encrypted, because after that, you've already received the certificate information and everything else is going to be encrypted. So there's no reason to keep the rest of it. But I think for this demo, we do have all of it. But for a real deployment, you really only need the beginning, because that's where the most interesting pieces are. And you can choose how you want to display it. You can, in this case, where do I want that? You can have it show the raw packets if you're interested in that. This is, it's a poor man's Wireshark. You would really want to fling it over there if you want true information. We also do have a bit image that people who are smarter than me can look at and say, oh, this is a PE executable and other things just by looking at this. And what else is to show here? And then it's easy to download the packets. So you can just download PCAP, which will just save it, and it will automatically launch Wireshark if you have it. You can get a link to this particular session to send to one of your coworkers. You can change various pieces about how it's displayed. Some people only like one column, or we have 2 columns. And then there's a bunch of different actions you can do. You can add and remove tags. You can actually delete the data if you have the rights to it. In this case, I'm logged in as an admin, so I could remove all the data, which will actually go and remove it from both the database and will scrub the PCAP if you desire. It actually asks you what you want to do. And so this is your general workflow. And I would say most people use Arkime in one of 2 ways. They use it where they have a SIM, whatever your favorite pronunciation is, that's receiving the alerts from Suricata or Zeek or whatever your favorite tool is, and they want to get more detail. Now, I know Suricata has added some features to get more of the packets, but older versions, you might only get the packet of the evilness. And so you're going from your SIM into Arkime, where you can actually see the full packets. And what you would do is it's easy to build a link that has the information. So if, let's say you're using Splunk. In Splunk, you can make it so that it would form an Arkime link, and you just click on it in Splunk. It would fling you over to Arkime, open up the session, and you would see the very session that you had a Suricata alert for it. If you had the Suricata plugin installed in Arkime, you would actually see a Suricata section right here that had the same information that Splunk had. So that's one of the common use cases. The other common use case is to just go into Arkime as a hunter and look for various things. I'm sorry, did you have a question, Josh?
Oh, no, sorry, if I'm being loud.
Cool. And so all these fields here, and let me know if there's things that you would rather talk about. I'm just going through random things. All these fields here allow you to click on them and add it to the search bar. So everything is a first-class search element. And if we just do a search, it's just going to update. And so now I've said, just show me TCP elements. And it's going to go through and you'll only see TCP things. Let's say if we only wanted to see self-signed things, you just do search, you'll see it's super fast. It's just amazing how fast Elasticsearch OpenSearch is at doing this. Like I said, I've run huge clusters of petabytes of trillions of sessions that were stored for years, and it's just almost instantaneous. It's just amazing what you can do with OpenSearch and Elasticsearch, and then pivoting into Arkime and receiving the packets. And so one of the things that people ask a lot of times is, how is the data stored? So all this metadata is stored in Elasticsearch. The actual packets itself are not. So they are not stored. The packets are not stored in Elasticsearch. Instead, they're usually stored either on local disk of the sensor, or you can now store them in, like I was mentioning before, in the cloud or different places. So it's kind of up to you. In general, we recommend you just store it in local disk. That's going to be usually the cheapest way to store it on the sensor. And you can have different retention for the packets themselves and the metadata. So many places will only store the packets for 7 days, 14 days, whatever they can afford on their sensors, but they'll store the metadata for months, even years. And so if something bad happens, so there was a case, one of the things, about being in this industry is you can't usually talk about how this stuff is used. But one of the cool things that I can talk about is we did publicize that Yahoo discovered the FAR PHP. Is that FAR? Yeah, I think it's PHP uses the FAR database. and it had been infiltrated, and someone had replaced one of the packages with something malicious. And we actually discovered that through, I think it was Suricata alerted on it. We actually saw the alert that it was beaconing, and then we were able to go back into Arkime and see when the package was downloaded and when the last good version was. And so we actually have a video up on our YouTube of all the real data about how they discovered it through an alert and using Arkime for discovering things. Because one of the things with Suricata or these alerting things is it's just telling you the bad thing, right? This is the bad thing that happened. And what you really want to know is what is happening around the bad thing. So, if host A beaconed out, you want to know, well, where did host A get that bad software? And so then you can go search and say, well, for IP 1234, what was it doing for the 10 minutes before it beaconed out? And you can see all the things that it downloaded. And so that's exactly what we were able to do, is find out, oh, it had gone to this particular thing and downloaded something bad.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm looking for the video now.
Yeah, it's. Let me know if you can't find it, and I can.
Oh, I'm sure it's right in front of me.
Yeah,
Just trying not to be too distracted. Yeah, well, I'll dig it up.
Okay, it's right here. If I can only read. Oh, there it is. Rotten pear. Pear, not it's the pear.
Rotten pear. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, I'll get that link shared out here just so everyone else can check it out.
Cool. And that's back when the project was called Moloch. So a lot of the times you'll hear us say Moloch or Arkime. It's the same project. We just had a name change about, has it been about 4 years now? And so, yeah. Okay. And then the one thing I wanted to show you was the hunt, what I mentioned earlier. And what a hunt does, let me change. I'm going to say protocols DNS. So notice I said protocols DNS and says there's 106,000 sessions. We don't want to really search through that many right now. And so I've added, and if the source IP is an IPv6 address, we just have this as a kind of shorthand for saying that. We're going to create a packet search job, and we're going to call this Coconut Demo. And this is a silly demo. Just ignore the silliness of it. But basically what we're doing is we're going to search all of the packets for the word coconut and these 360 sessions that matched. And so we can say create. And I'm only showing this because I know it works. And so it went by too fast, but basically we went through those 360 sessions. We actually looked at the packets themselves. So if you have lots of different sensors, this is going to go out and fan out to all those sensors and search all of the packets that were part of those 360 sessions, and then tell you which of them's matched. And in this case, we had 4 matches, and it's just showing you, how long it took and where it was. And then you have different options. And I'm just going to click this one. Hopefully it doesn't open a new window. No, it does. Okay. And so it opens a new window, and it's basically showing you, here are the 4 sessions that matched. And we can open them up. And we can see, oh, yep, this does have the word coconut in it. And so the word coconut was not in the metadata up here. Oh, it is in you can see we've done this particular demo 5 other times, but it wasn't searching this field. It was searching the packets themselves. And you can see that coconut was nowhere up here in the metadata, just to prove that that's what it was actually doing as you open them up. You can see one of the big things we've spent a lot of time on is sharing and doing roles properly. So you can actually go through, when you created it, you can decide who can see this hunt. And so you might have several different teams in your organization. If you have a big organization where a lot of times you have people that are SOC versus IR maybe might be a distinguishing attribute. And so you might only want the IR people to see hunts or whatever. Or you might have a insider threat team that is doing stuff. And so you can choose who can see the hunt besides yourself. The person who creates it can obviously always see it. But yeah, we spent a lot of time on that and just giving people more control, because bigger organizations are starting to use Arkime, and they want to be able to specify who gets to see what.
Very cool. Comment from YouTube. Looks like Polar Proxy might work
Yes.
with Arkime. Is that?
Yep. That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you.
Polar, okay, so there you go. Polar Proxy. Awesome.
And then feel free to play with it. I'm not going to do full demos, but just real quick, what Spy View allows you to do is see the unique values for every field. And so here's all the fields. You get to choose which ones are open. And so this is just another way to look at your data. And you might have like right now we're seeing everything, but like just DNS, here's all of the DNS traffic. And then this is how all the unique IPs. Spy Graph. The default is boring here, but Spy Graph allows you to see that in a graphical context. So this is a great way to analyze your top talkers. So this top graph is just showing you all the traffic. Here, let me get rid of this. So this is just showing you all the traffic, and you can see where these big lines are. And then you want to see, well, how did I get this huge line? And it's going to break them up, and it's sorted. You can choose how it's sorted, but it's sorted right now by count. And so it's showing you like this IP for source IP, this IP was number 1. And so a lot of times you're trying to figure out, well, what is causing this traffic? Is it based on source IP? Is it based on destination IP? And so you can see this one is based on destination IP, or remember just a second ago, this one was based on source IP. And so there's all kinds of different interesting ways to break it up. Connections is, I like to call your Death Star, right? You get to see how everything is connected. You can mouse over and see like what the counts of the numbers are. Obviously, the size of either the circle or the line is how many sessions there are. You can actually change the weight to be packet-based or other things. And either of the fields can be changed to how they're linked together. Something new we added is, oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. I'll go back to a second. And then you can just drag them around and turn things on and off. And this is one of the few ones that we've actually, someone contributed a big feature where it was easy to download it and save it as a PNG, so you can stick it into presentations or whatever. So you don't even have to do a screenshot. You can do more powerful things. Mm-hmm. Spy Graph, real quick, what I meant to show before, something that we added is other ways to view it and ways to add more fields. And so let's do source. I always get burned. I really should put a demo together. This is kind of boring, but you had the destination IP, you had the source country, and you have the source port, which is boring at 0. I don't know why. Let's do destination port. Oh, that's just boring. But and so these must all be ICMPs with a 0. But so we now support donuts, tables, where you can see the same data that we just mentioned right here, or tree maps. I like the table. Real quick, we'll switch back to table. And how this is different than your normal sessions displays, it's doing everything unique. So what this is saying is for this IP, there's 38,000 unique values, unique sessions with that IP. And then with this country, there's 1,237 with this IP and this source country. And then, well, this didn't change, but if this was a different number, here's a better example. So this IP is 913, with KR it's 77, and with destination port or 5900, there's just one session. And so this allows you to kind of see your uniqueness however you want in table form. And again, you can sort these how you want. For tree map, it's the same thing, but it's size based. One of the differences we did for tree map for a company that asked us to add uniqueness based on other fields. So on top of the uniqueness for these fields, we also display source IP and destination IP uniqueness. And so you can actually mouse over these and it's going to be changing.
Okay.
And so those are the main features of Arkime. Those are just kind of the 4 main ways to view the data. The sessions, the spy view is giving you, anyway, we might hit demoitis now. But the sessions was giving you the all the unique sessions. Spy view is allowing you to see unique values per field. Spy graph is allowing you to see a graph for each field, so you can easily find top talkers and such. And connections is giving you a way to kind of see how everything is connected to and it's doing. Yeah, there we go. And it's allowing you to see how everything's connected. And then hunts, like we mentioned, is a way to get to tag sessions that match certain criteria where the packets actually are there.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just again, as like all of the metadata, it's just so easy to quickly build and include or exclude, the data that you're looking at, and so really fast and intuitive. And it's if you haven't, I can't stress enough, if you haven't checked it out, you can go get hands-on right now at arkime.com. Go to the demo and take it for a open source project. Integrates with a lot of other network monitoring pipelines out there, so there's quite a bit of capability there to utilize it. I know it's baked into you were mentioning Malcolm project, but there's others. Selks is one I've become a little more familiar with, just because the folks that build and maintain that are kind of part of the Suricata community proper. So that is a project that has oftentimes been something that I've demoed and utilized over the years, and which it's easy to pivot. I used to run Cuckoo Sandbox locally for many years until I had to decommission the server, and then I never got the momentum back to get it up and running again. But part of my Cuckoo Sandbox, I would feed all of the PCAP into an Arkime instance, and I'd go hunting through that network traffic at times just to see if anything interesting popped out, which usually it did. So
yeah, one of the things that I forgot to show that everybody always loves is that you can fling the packets over to CyberChef easily.
I saw that link. I don't remember when that was added.
So
it seems like such a natural integration.
People want to do that, they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then real quick, what I wanted to show is one of our new tools, which is called Context. Oops. Which we also have up on the demo site.
Do you want to? You're not sharing your screen anymore.
Oh, did I not share it?
Yeah, it dropped just a minute or so ago.
Oh, okay.
I assumed you did that, but maybe it was
I might have
some other cause.
Technology.
Maybe I did it. I don't know. If I did, it wasn't intentional.
There you go.
Okay, your screen's back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and what Context allows you to do is, given indicators, quickly search a bunch of different integrations. So let's just. And so what I did here is they're comma separated. I have 2 indicators. I'm searching for a domain and an IP address, and I'm going to go off to all of the integrations that I have configured. I'll show you a list in just a second, but it's showing you kind of a simple way to see what those different databases, or I don't know what the right term is, integrations are returning. And so in this case, we get AOL.com, and it actually shows you, I don't know if this is coming through on the demo wise, but it's showing you like counts of how many things are looking good, how many things are maybe not great, and how many things are looking kind of suspect and that you should potentially investigate further. And then you can click on any of these and just quickly see over here the different results. And it's just easy to look at the data where we're querying a whole bunch of different services. So here we queried Gray Noise and Shodan and ThreatFox and just a whole bunch of things. And you can even query Arkime. You can configure it so it will go into Arkime and query it and allow you to easily bounce over to there to see if the results that you might want to look at. And then the other thing you can do is with any of these results, you can then configure any any URLs that you might want to search. And so in this case, we have a bunch of general hunting places that you might want to fling IOCs to, but you can also add other groups here where you have maybe internal tools. And so what a lot of folks who use context do is they might have, a way to search their SIM, a way to search their spam database, whatever, their IP, their IPAM database. And all of these URLs can specify what kind of IOCs they accept. And so they will actually disappear when you're looking at something that's not one of those things. I don't know if I have a good demo here, but oh yeah, so there it just changed. As I switched between these two different things, you can see these URLs that we're going to fling the results over to are changing. And then lastly, you can actually control which integrations you're interested in looking at.
Okay.
So that's just a super quick demo of this. This is something we've been working on. It is part of 5.0. We're actually refreshing the UI in Arkime 6 to make it a little bit more polished, but it's kind of one of our exciting things that we've been working on.
And you got here just right from the main Arkime UI?
Yep. If you go to the demo, you can get to it from Arkime, but if you go to just the arkime.com, I think it's demo. Yep. Right here's the context demo and Arkime demo.
Ah, okay. Very cool. All right.
One of the things that we've been working with is we finally have Docker support. People have been asking for years. I've been resistant, but we finally now have a container that people can actually use to deploy Arkime and context fairly easily. It still takes a little bit of work, but it makes it easier to deploy. And one of the cool things is now we have all these demos because they're all in Docker and they all live in the same host, just sharing the same database. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I interrupted you.
Yeah, just a question from Drew on YouTube. Is there a feel for who the primary users of Arkime are, i.e. corporate use, academia, individuals?
So being open source, we have no good way to track people, and we've never added tracking. So you can only based on the questions we get. Most of the questions we get are from corporations. And then occasionally a PhD student will be like, I need to have Arkime running by next week. Can you help me? And but most of the time it is corporations. And we have talked to lots of people in the health space, financial space, internet space. Obviously, I was at AOL, who are using Arkime.
Yeah, the academic person, I can, that sounds familiar. Yeah, I haven't worked on my dissertation for the last 7 months, and now I need to show results. So let's pull a few all-nighters here.
And like I said before, a lot of times people don't want to talk about they're using Arkime, but another data point is Equifax, right? Equifax is the one that got hacked? Yeah. They publicly said they were using Moloch, and it's in the actual thing where they testified to Congress and whatever. So that's not how they found the bad person, but it is how they found what the bad person was doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the example you brought up earlier, it creates another layer of activity, a trace of activity, even if you're just keeping the metadata around, because the actual packet data gets to be onerous. I can't imagine performing any sort of auditing, incident response. I mean, if I rolled into an environment on IR and had this level of data available, I would think that in a lot of situations that'd be pretty fantastic. So I've never had to really deploy it though. So and that goes for Suricata as well. I've been the beneficiary of having teams that have done that work for me, but I would imagine that those that are familiar with it, it's a pretty straightforward deployment if you've worked with it before. Let's see. Can't see his screen. Thank you. Well, I got a comment here about can't see the screen. It looks like though, from everything I can see, your screen share is coming through great. So maybe we just had a moment there where it wasn't being shared, but we got that corrected. So, well, let's see, we've been chatting for about an hour already, a little over. Covered a lot of really, interesting background, what Arkime is. So hopefully if you were new to Arkime, this was an opportunity to get to learn it. Great demo, as well as learning about a new tool. I've never worked with context before. So I'm going to have to add that to my list of things to look into here over the holidays. Anything else? If anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I think we're right here on the edge of wrapping things up, though. Andy, anything else you wanted to talk about? You've got Archimeda. No, you've got the. Oh, now I'm slaughtering the term. You've got office hours and you have the conference still. Is that correct? I know you still have office hours.
Right. So, I mean, if people want to communicate with us, I would love our number one place is Slack. I know some people don't love Slack, but come on to Slack. We love to help people on Slack. That's where we love to communicate. We do have office hours twice a month. They are, there's usually maybe 5 to 10 folks. And so it's more about like helping people with problems. But occasionally we do have presentations. And if we do have a presentation, we will post it on both in Slack and to the webpage about the presentation that week. And so like examples, we had John from Job 4 come in and talk about it. And we talked about how it was used in Arkime and what it could be used for. And but most of the time, it's a great place if you have questions. Like a lot of times it's like, hey, we want to buy the right machine. Can you help us pick out this machine? Or how do you do this? Or people talk about their features. And then the conference we were doing yearly for a while, then COVID happened, and now we've done just one since COVID. We're starting to talk about when to do our next one, but don't know yet. But yes, we'd love to have people there. It's usually on the East Coast. That's where most of the folks, seems like that's where a lot of people who use Arkime are based, is East Coast. Oh, we have a cat. And then, those are the main. And then we're on GitHub. If you find a problem, please, feel free to submit an issue.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. A couple of thank yous from the viewers, as well as, of course, from me. Really appreciate, as always, taking time to come on the stream, as well as, of course, all of the effort over the years to develop such a great tool. I can't really think anything else either. Hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to maybe come on the stream again, or because you're always welcome, or who knows? I guess every once in a while I'll put some content out there around Arkime. I actually made a course a while back. It's sitting out there on Pluralsight. It's probably a little old now, but it was something that was a lot of fun to do. So,
cool.
So yeah, I think that's probably it. If there are no final questions, thoughts, or comments here, I think I'm going to hit the end stream button in just a few seconds. Does that sound good to you, Andy?
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, enjoy. Reminder that I'll be streaming once more tomorrow. I guess I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the stream, but yeah, anxiety or whatever got the better of me, and I forget half of the things that I want to say whenever I start talking. So one more stream tomorrow, part of the Malware Monday series, just be talking about basic malware analysis stuff. So if you're interested in learning more about malware, join us. Otherwise, I'm going to continue streaming into the new year in 2025. I already got a number of streams lined up. So hopefully we'll see you both tomorrow and then into the new year. So until then, Happy New Year.